My name is Jamie Kasap or Jaime Kasap, depending on what language you speak, but we'll do English. You guys want to do the Spanish, unless you want to do the Spanish version. Jaime's version? No, we'll do the English version. Okay, so I am part of the Google Apps for Education team. I've been part of the Apps for Education team for a number of years now. I was actually working with universities and trying to get universities to think about how they can utilize Google tools in the university space. And about 2.5 years ago, we said, this could be really impactful in the K-12 space. And so let's go out and see how we can take some of our tools and implement them in the K-12 space. And we thought, that first year, that maybe we would get 250,000 users or so using our tools in K-12. And we were wrong. We got 2 million users in the classroom. So lots of different ways that teachers and students are using our tools in the classroom. James shared some of them with you earlier. But I took a different angle on showing you some of those tools. I want to highlight some of the Google tools, obviously. But what I thought I'd do is, how many of you are up in front of students teaching? Cool, perfect. So I am also a faculty, I don't know what I'm called. I'm an adjunct professor at Arizona State University, and I teach graduate classes in public policy and other subjects. And so I know that teaching students can be difficult, especially students that are coming in that think that they're tech savvy and whatever. So what I thought we would do is go through some of the tools, but show you the tools and how they can be helpful to you as teachers in the classroom, right? And in turn, obviously, your teachers, your students who are teachers, are seeing these tools, and then they're thinking about how they can apply these tools when they go out and teach in the classroom. So we wanted to walk through some of those. So this should be interactive. James and I are going to go back and forth. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, jump up, scream, say what you want. Stop. Yes. Why am I doing a pre-flight? We don't want that.
I pushed up.
Okay.
We're definitely the pinky in the brain presentation up here, so
okay.
See how it goes.
Yes. All right. So what I want to talk about is highlight some of the Google tools. How many of you are familiar with Google Apps for Education? How many of you use the tools today? Okay, cool. About, 3 years ago, we took a Google bus tour, and we went around the country and we visited with a bunch of universities. Thanks. We visited with a bunch of universities that were using Google Apps, because we wanted to draw awareness to the tools that were available to students and faculty members at the schools that we were working with. And we were surprised to learn that students were definitely using things like Gmail and Google Talk and Calendar, but they didn't know very much about the other tools that were available. So we started an awareness campaign to teach faculty and students about these tools. And so these are the tools. It's Gmail, Talk, Groups, Calendar, Docs, Sites, and other things that we're going to talk about. So we're going to highlight some of these, and again, highlight how you can use some of these tools in your classes. So Google Docs. We're going to start with Google Docs because it's kind of the bread and butter, definitely in K-12 space, and definitely in some of the universities that I've worked with in the past on utilizing, on teachers and students utilizing these tools. So let's start with just basic things like note-taking. One of the ways you can use this tool is to be able to take notes and keep track of them. I know lots of faculty members are using their notes, or the note functionality, to keep track of their notes for a class, and students are using this tool in their classroom in both K-12 and in the college space to just keep a running tally of all their notes and collaborating more and more with that old. Remember when you were a student and you would say, hey, can I see your notes? Can I share your notes? Can you share your notes with me? Now students are doing that with this tool. They're actually using this tool to share notes with each other. So that's one way. We're going to go through a lot of these. So some of these are going to be quick.
And one thing I'd like to add on the note-taking thing is you were able to actually scaffold it as much as you want. So one thing that I do is I create templates for notes for my students. They're 12. And so I'd give them the Cornell Notes outline. They go in there, they just make a copy of that Google Doc, and then they can go in, and the notes are set up exactly as I want it. So it's not just a free open document for them to just put text everywhere. It's like, here are the bullet points, go in there, make a copy of it, and then they can put in the information where you want them to.
Yes. Another way that you can use this, that faculty are using this in the schools, is to be able to utilize them as project management tools, or to use them for project and research proposals, so that you can actually create all your proposals, you can create all your material, keep it in one folder, keep it in one place, and that way you can share those particular folders with whoever you need to share them with. So if you need to share a group of folders or a group of files with the class, you can actually create a group, have that group shared with, you can share your material with that group, and so anytime you add more material into that folder, you can actually use Google Docs to do that. Another example is to be able to share feedback on assignments. Now, a couple of points about this one. We'll stay on this one for a second. Because I talked to a lot of teachers in K-12, and I've talked to a lot of faculty who say that Google Docs has turned them from being a judge to being a coach. And what I mean by that is they used to hand assignments to students, whether they were in high school or whether they're in college, and they would hand an assignment to a group of students and say, here's your assignment, you need to go do this project, or come to me with what your proposal is for a specific project. And the students would come back to the teacher and say, this is what we're going to write about. This is what our project is about. We'll see you in 6 or 8 or 12 or 16 weeks at the end of that. And the teacher or faculty member would judge the project at the end of that project. They would judge it. Well, now, because they can have the share capability, teachers and faculty are asking their students to actually include them as collaborators on their documents. And so what they're doing is they're going in and leaving notes, leaving hints, leaving attachments or websites or other things along the way to kind of provide guidance. So they're not actually judging a project at the end of the project, they're actually providing feedback all along the way. So they're becoming more coaches than judges.
And one of the easiest things to do is once they've shared that file with you, there's an option of filtering where the most recently updated file is at the top. So if you're a teacher and you have 30 students or maybe more students who have shared their papers with you, once a student has made a change to their file, it jumps to the top. So you go in there at night and you're like, oh, 5 of my students worked on their paper. And so you can also just informally, when you go into your Google Docs, see that so-and-so hasn't made a revision to their paper in more than 2 weeks. And you know that, okay, this is a red flag. Let's go ahead and have a discussion with that student. And that didn't require any effort besides opening up your Google documents and seeing the list there.
Yeah, and just to add to that, when I teach graduate classes, I assign all my assignments in Google Docs, and I ask everyone to complete their assignments in Google Docs, and that's how I kind of give them credit for what they're doing. And I remember a student coming to me and saying, they came to me and said, I can't believe you gave me a B. I worked really, really hard on this project or on this paper, and I spent all this time on this paper. And I'm like, really? Let's take a look in the revision history. You spent an hour and a half last night on it. And so you can do things like that. Also, more importantly is, when you give a group assignments, there's always that one kid in the group, and it's usually me, who did the least amount of work, right? But students have this code where they don't rat each other out. And because of revision history, you can actually go in and see who's contributing what to a project, to a paper. So you can actually give individual grades on a group assignment. Project management, obviously being able to utilize, by the way, all these links and everything will be available to you, so you can go in there and play with this on your own time and see how to use these things. But you can go in and create templates for project management so that you can actually manage whatever projects that you want. And you can include contributors or viewers into the spreadsheet so that they can actually see what you are working on and who's doing what, and then you can actually create notifications so that when somebody goes in and updates the spreadsheet or the project plan, you'll get notified that somebody actually went in there and updated it. So little tools, little things like this that can actually make your life easier when you're trying to manage a bunch of different projects.
Yeah, I said in my presentation earlier where I give that the students each get 5 tasks a day. So at the beginning of each month, I create a spreadsheet that looks something similar where it just says NC for not complete for each of the assignments. And as they go through the steps for each day, they change that to C. So they can monitor their own progress and saying, okay, if I have everything complete, there's a good chance that my grade is going to reflect that hard work. Where at the end of the month, they can go in and see, oh, well, this is a low grade because half of my stuff says NC. So they can see, did I turn in my homework last week on Monday? And it's right there. They can share that with me so I can go in and see where they're at and monitor their progress as you go throughout a month or maybe for you guys a quarter at your schools.
James did his presentation in Google Docs. This presentation is in Google Docs, but you can actually keep your presentations and your lectures in Google Docs for lots of different reasons. One is you can easily share this presentation. So if this presentation wasn't being shared with you, I could share this presentation with you and you can have access to it. And if I made changes to it, or if I change a certain link or I change something, you would have the latest update to the presentation because I shared the link with you and you would have the latest information. So to be able to put your presentations or your lectures or your talks into a Google Doc and then be able to give access to students to those documents, to those lectures, so that they can actually see those would be also very useful. Yeah?
How easy is it to convert between PowerPoint?
How easy, the question was, how easy is it to convert between PowerPoint and Google Docs? And I'll let my answer, I use PowerPoint. I heard some gasps in the room. I use PowerPoint all the time. I spend a lot of time on airplanes. And so I create presentations or something on an airplane, and then I get off, and then I upload it on Google Docs, and it's there. James and I worked on this presentation together on Google Docs, but I started it on PowerPoint. And then I can easily, if I need to present this somewhere, or I need to give somebody a copy of it, I can easily download this as a PowerPoint file or as a PDF file and be able to share it that way as well.
And anytime I'm doing old school direct instruction, where I'm standing at the front of the room going through a presentation, I give the students a link to it and then they open it up, and so they're viewing it on their Chromebook, and then they can make notes to themselves in one of the little apps called Note Taker, and as they go through the presentation.
Yeah, sorry, there was somebody behind you.
Are there tools for typesetting math? Last time I tried it.
Yeah, typesetting math. That's a good question, and I'm glad you brought it up. There isn't, but we recognize that, and it's on the feature request list. It's an HTML5 issue.
So for both of you, when you're starting a brand new class,
Uh-huh.
you have to make sure everybody has access to everything. How do you could you talk for a second about how you get that set up?
So if I wanted to share this presentation, I would just click share, and then you can share to anybody with a link. And then I just post that link in, let's say, step 3 of my class. And so they go to presentation, and once they've opened it, it automatically has put it in their docs.
All right. So so the students are responsible for going. You give them a web address.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to write something down. So you send them to a web address. And that's
Or if I had like a list of my students' email addresses, I could just copy and paste it in there, and they would get an email notification that I've shared the presentation with them. And then once they've opened it, they have it forever in their Google Docs.
okay, but what you actually really do though is you tell them all to go to this and
Yeah, so like in my class, you saw the way the blog was laid out. Step 3, it says, today we're going to talk about the medieval Japan in this presentation. And presentation is hyperlinked. So they just click on it when it's time to go and it opens up.
I guess they're all doing that in the classroom. But
Yeah.
you're there, so you say, okay, everybody go to this now and click so you can have access.
Yeah, so I don't even have to provision that before. That's just part of the lesson. As we're going into the lesson, they click and open it up. I don't have to think about, oh my gosh, do all the students have my presentation? That's the nice thing about Google Docs.
And
And-
in your higher education.
And for when I teach classes at ASU, ASU is a Google Apps school, so I have all their email addresses already. So all their email addresses is part of Google Apps, and so I just take all their email, start a group, and share all my files or whatever I need to share with them through that group.
But that can be automated. You're not entering their emails.
No, I can. Yeah. Well, I'm lazy. I'm sure it's automated where you can actually create groups. I just literally highlight them all and put them into a group, and it takes 8.5 seconds to do it. So I just do it myself,
Or 9.
or 9 seconds. But yeah. All right. So keeping all your presentations in one place is very helpful, especially if you're like me, you have 18, 20 different versions of your presentation, and to be able to have them all in one place. and be able to give access to those presentations, as opposed to, it's so much easier when if you ask me, hey, you know that presentation that you gave, can you share that with me? You know, some of my presentations are 32, 35 megabytes in size. Can you imagine trying to send that back and forth through email, or, you know, put it in a Dropbox, or doing this or doing that? I can just send you a link, you know, to the presentation, or I can just add your email to the presentation and you have access to it. And I can determine whether or not you are just a viewer or somebody who can actually contribute to it as well. So a little bit about collaborative lesson plans. So in K-12, what teachers are doing is they're creating lesson plans and then sharing those lesson plans in the same way that you can share presentations with other teachers, so that they can contribute to those lesson plans as well. And so you have you have these collaborative lesson plans that are being created, and one of the hard things to do with teachers is get them to share stuff, because they don't want other teachers to kind of ruin them, because they're geniuses and they know everything. And so one of the cool things about this is that you can share your lesson plan. Somebody can add, contribute whatever you want to it, and if you just don't like it, you can just go back in revision history and grab the old one that you liked, right? So what's cool is that it gives you the freedom to open up and let you share and get other people's thoughts and collaboration on those, but you can also go back and be that individual person that you want to be.
Yeah, at KIPP we have very little time to get together, because we're working so many hours with our students, that as a grade level leader, every Friday we have to do some type of collaborative lesson where we're doing, it's called team and family time. And so what I do at the beginning of the week is I just create a doc and send a link out, and it's like Friday team and family time 8-7. And so the teachers know that this is where we're going to work together on this. I didn't have to arrange any meeting. I just go in there, I throw out the skeleton, and we work together to make sure that's done. We walk into the team and family time on Friday. That's already there for us to all look at, and we never even had to come together, because teachers, our lives are so hectic, and I didn't have time to schedule 60 minutes for all of us to get together and work on a lesson plan. That's just too cumbersome for me, and Google Docs has solved that problem that I had.
And I remember as I like to call myself a professor, in my professorship, earlier on, because I've been doing it for like 6 years now. But when I was teaching before, I would have to send like kind of the faculty lead a Word document of what my syllabus was going to be, and they would make changes to it and send it back to me, and then I would see those and then send it back, and then literally they would say, wait, but did you get the other one, the one that I said new version on it? And I would literally go back and forth and get to the point like, you know what, never mind, I'm just going to do it myself anyway. So with this, I can, especially the way I travel, I can just put my syllabus out there and send it to all the faculty, and if they have thoughts, comments, they want to add some thoughts to the syllabus, they can just go ahead and do that, and I can just see them at my leisure. All right, one of the cool things that we're really excited about this, and there's not enough talk about this, and I want to hear more, and maybe one of the research papers that you guys think about, maybe if I can convince some of you to do this, is that I think for the first time in history, we can actually deconstruct the writing process, kind of what happens to a kid in the writing process. For example, you would have to sit a kid down and say, write a paper on what happened in World War II. It doesn't matter what grade level, but let's say high school, you want to see how they write, and write a paper. And you'd have to set them up with a video camera, and you'd have to watch them or whatever. But now, because of Google Docs and revision history, you can actually start at the beginning. You can hand a fifth grader a topic, have them write 3 paragraphs, and you can actually, through revision history, go back to the beginning and see them write the whole paper. You can actually see their thoughts and what went into the paper and what didn't, and what got out and what went in originally and what came out through their revision history. So we can actually deconstruct the writing process and see how kids think through that scenario. Oops, I already did that one. And then one of the coolest things that you can go with Google Docs, this applies to both Google Docs and Gmail and Google Chat with a bot, is that you can actually literally tear down the Tower of Babel, right? Because if you are a teacher, or faculty member, a K-12 teacher, you can send my mother a letter or an email in English, because that's your language, and talk about how I'm doing in the class, and my mother will get it in Spanish. And we encourage school districts to sign up parents, right? We all talk about bringing parents into the education process. If you can give parents accounts, they can actually go in and receive emails. They can go in and look at documents. You can share lots of things with them, but they can actually get, my mother can get the email in Spanish or the document in Spanish, read it in Spanish, write back in Spanish, and then I get it back in English. And so all of a sudden now I can communicate with parents who don't necessarily, where English isn't their natural language. And this applies to about 47 different languages. And this is one of the hardest computer science problems that we're working on right now at Google. Because Spanish to English and English to Spanish is difficult enough, but Spanish to Mandarin and Mandarin to Arabic and Arabic to Spanish and Spanish to Portuguese and Portuguese back to English is very difficult, and we're working on that. But that's one way of leveling the playing field, because you can actually bring parents of other languages into the education process.
Yeah, my students last year, all their parents spoke English, but this year having Mandarin parents, having Spanish parents is something that I have to think about and how I communicate, because I don't speak Mandarin.
Now you can send letters, emails in English, and they'll get it. You got to give them accounts.
I'm excited.
All right, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about science, and we talked about how you can actually take data and make it, kind of cool for a student. I just want to show you this quick video here from YouTube of a teacher demonstrating how to
Welcome
use.
to a demonstration showing how to add a Google gadget, a motion chart, to a Google spreadsheet. I've already selected the data set, and I've already selected the range of data I would like in my motion chart. To add it, simply click on Insert, and then Gadget. Under Motion Chart, click Add to Spreadsheet. I'm going to title this Plant Height Over Time. Click Apply and Close, and the motion chart will be embedded onto the spreadsheet. There's a lot of data here, so I'd really like to look at it on its own sheet. Pull down the menu and click Move to Own Sheet. This will open it up and give me more of an opportunity to look at the data. First, I'll set the y-axis to the height of the plants. Then I will set the x-axis to the time that the plants have had to grow. I'd also like to take a look at the different crops. In this case, blue is for beans, green is for corn, and yellow for tomatoes. And I would like to only look at data for a couple of different students, Abiola and Becca and Camellia. I'm going to click on Run, and this will show us the growth in their plants' height over time. We can see here that the corn, the green, is really taking off. The beans are growing second in height, and the tomatoes are third. We could also take a look at the numbers of leaves. This will change each of the circles to indicate the number of leaves. For example, on January 21st, these beans had fewer leaves because the circle is smaller. As a matter of fact, they had 6 leaves. And the corn had 9, and the fastest growing had 11. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy using this tool with your students.
So that's just, and it's just a quick snapshot of how you can use these tools, and everything from what's on this page here is a Google form, which is here, and so you can set up your Google form, which we're going to talk about in a second, put your data in a Google form. It instantly goes into a spreadsheet. You take that spreadsheet data, create a motion chart, and all of a sudden now you can see all the data in a motion chart. And you can literally learn how to do this in a minute and a half. And imagine being able to show your kids how to do this so that they can actually take science and put it into motion, which is something that they could be interested in doing. All right, so here's where you can learn more. And what we wanted to be able to do is, how many of you are playing along? You have Google open? You have computer? Okay. So what you want to do is spend about 5, 6, 7 minutes creating some kind of Google Doc, either a presentation, a spreadsheet, or a Word document, or not a Word document, a word processing document, sorry. And go in and be able to share it with a neighbor and kind of comment back and forth, just so you can kind of see the motion of this and how it works.
So it should be like per table. So there's 4 back there, 4 back there. If you're sitting alone, maybe you want to join up with a group so that you guys can collaborate on a document. So it could be any of the different Google documents.
All right, so hopefully you were able to kind of create a document or have somebody create a document, share that with others, and be able to see each other kind of working on a document at the same time, collaborating on that. Any questions, comments, issues, concerns?
Awesome.
All right, cool. So hopefully you can play some more with that. So we're going to move forward. Oh, James just wanted to use that. All right.
Bringing us back.
One of the coolest things that you can do inside the Google Apps Toolkit is Google Forms. Google Forms, how many of you have used Google Forms? All right, cool. So Google Forms can change your world. I use Google Forms. I got married in March, and I use Google Forms as my wedding invitation. And I sent everyone a form, like, are you coming? Are you not coming? And if you weren't on the spreadsheet, you just weren't going to come. So Google Forms can be used for lots of different things, including sending out your wedding invitation. But I want to show you some highlights on how you can use it in your classroom. So first, student assessments. Being able to go in and create Google Forms. Let me explain Google Forms for those of you who don't know. Google Forms is a survey tool, if you will, where you can create any type of survey question that you want. You can create a option survey question, a multiple choice, a radio button, an open-ended question, anything that you want to ask in any way that you want to ask a survey question, you can create that in Google Forms. And you can determine whether or not that question is a required question that needs to be answered before somebody can move on. But it's basically a survey tool. The cool thing is that you can send out the link to that survey, or you can embed that survey into a site, into an email, into a web page, or you can send it out as a link, and the person that you're sending the survey to fills it out, and all that data that gets filled out gets automatically populated inside a spreadsheet in live. So you can send out a survey to 1,000 people, and all the responses will come back into a spreadsheet live. And so lots of different things that you can do with this, obviously. So the first thing is, if you're a teacher or faculty member and you have a classroom, you can ask kind of pre-assessment questions, right? So let's say we're going to teach, organizational behavior, or we're going to teach World War II. You can start with a survey question using Google Forms and ask 10 basic questions about World War II, or whatever you want to ask. Or if you're a K-12 teacher, you can ask, what's 2 plus 2? And ask those types of questions if that's what you're going to teach. And the answers, as the two students fill them out, get popped into a spreadsheet, and you can just look down a spreadsheet and see a pattern of answers. And so you can actually see whether the students actually understand, before you even teach, what their level of understanding is of a subject matter. So you can use it for student assessments. That's one example. We're going to go through a couple of them here. Another one is you can do beginning or end of the semester surveys. Did you like this class? Did you not like this class? Did you like the subject matter? If you're a K-12 teacher, the dreaded, what did you do this summer? What did you do on summer vacation question that you can ask, or you can put in different options. But you can actually use that to kind of create that. And again, all this gets populated into a spreadsheet that you keep forever. The data is there. So you can actually do a pre-assessment, look at the data, do a post-assessment with the same questions, and look at the data, and even do side-by-side comparison. And if you're really good, you can put them into a motion chart, and you can actually see if they're trending the same way. You can take polls. So right now, if you all had a Google form, I can send out, okay, fill out this Google form and take a poll, or take an opinion poll, or take create different sides to an argument, or an argumentation debate type of poll that you can set up with this, and you can actually put all the answers, because they pop in automatically into a spreadsheet. You can see live what the answers are up on a projector. Yeah. Can you use that? Absolutely. You don't click. I don't know what a clicker is.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
So can they just use their phones and go to the web?
Absolutely. So you can just use this. If they have a computer and you have the form up and running.
Or from the phone. I don't want them to have the computers on
Right.
the phone.
Right. So
Yeah.
you,
It's definitely possible. I used clickers in my classroom last year, and they were just so cumbersome. You know, needing to pass them out and everything, and maintain batteries and whatnot. And yeah, the different tools like this
So to
have
an-
completely replaced those.
and to answer your question, you can use it from your phone.
And you have a wider range of input options, so it's not just A, B, C, or D, plus, minus, and then numbers. It's a lot, everything.
It's really cool. It's
Yeah.
really cool. It's one of the things that we're going to play with hopefully in a minute. You can do pop quizzes, right? It literally takes you, once you get good at these, you can do forms in 5 minutes. I could have done a form while you guys are doing your exercise and asked you 5 questions that quickly and send you the link to that form, and you could have gone in there, and so you can do pop quizzes. Again, you can do research participation signups for different things. That's one example. In K-12, we talked about this already, but you can do pre-assessments, post-assessments, in any subject that you want. It doesn't matter. It can be math, it could be science, it could be history, whatever subject you want. You can go in there because you create the questions the way you want to create the questions. Yeah,
Can it be anonymous or?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, the first form I ever created was anonymous by accident because I didn't ask for their name, and they submitted all their work, and I was like, "Crap."
So it's automatically anonymous.
Yeah, you have to, the first field has to be name, first name or whatever. Yep.
And you can make it so it's a required, or it'll automatically capture their email address too.
Can you embed pictures or videos? Watch this video, answer this?
So to answer that question, what I've done as a solution is I'll embed the quiz. You can take the quiz and embed it anywhere. You put it on your blog, for example, you have a video up above. And then they can watch that video, and as they're going along, so for homework, for example, flip teaching model, watch a video, fill out a summary at the same time, so they can pause the video and go in there and be completing a form in real time.
Yeah.
The email, does it have to be Gmail or?
It,
Oh, it has to be a Google account. But if your school is gone Google, and your extension is your domain is like at KIP LA Schools, you can have that account. So it doesn't have to be at Google or at Gmail.
It's Gmail. It's a Gmail account, but if you don't have a Gmail account, you can set up for an account really quickly.
Yep.
Well, no, you just have to send them, and they'll if they don't, you can send them to any email address. But if it's not a Google address, they'll say, would you like to link this to your Gmail address? It'll do that. But if you have a domain at your school already set up, then it's already automatically a Google account.
But to fill out the form, they do not have to have a
Right.
Google account. Anybody in the world can go in there and fill this form out.
Because you can actually you can put the form onto a website and go in there and create the form. So they actually fill out the form. If you send them an email, they don't have to have a Gmail account. Okay, cool. Anyway, so you can do assessments. The other thing you can do is teacher observations or any kind of survey questions, right? So obviously we can go stand up here and tell you 10, 20 different ways. Or you can track discipline referrals. I hear of this. It's huge in K-12 because you have a 500-600 person school and you have 100 teachers, and they're all handing the student discipline referrals, but who's collecting how many they are, right? So if they're all doing paper referrals or paper discipline referrals, somebody has to take those paper referrals and put them into some log into a book and actually track them that way. But if you do them online, then you can actually automatically keep track, and schools are getting better results from that.
If you use a form for assessment, you can give feedback.
So the question is, if you,
Give feedback on the form responses.
how do you? Well, you'll have the spreadsheet answers, and then that's how you can give you can give feedback.
So that's probably a good time to talk about some of the higher level applications with Google Forms. There's things called scripts. And what we've done at KIP is we've built in some automatic scripts. So my math teacher, for example, has created a form to accompany his flip videos. The students go in and they complete the form, and based on their answers, they get feedback in the form of an email. So instead of putting their name in, they put in their email address. And so they'll say 4/5, and that's an incorrect answer. And he has it, this guy's crazy, but it's conditional. So it's like, okay, this is what the answer they came up with. So this is the mistake they probably made. This is the feedback I'm going to give them. So the feedback is instantaneous and automated. And there's another program for you in terms of grading called Flebaroo. It was created by a Googler and part of their 20% time project. And it also turns forms into full-on grade books and grading.
Yeah.
Where is
Yeah, I'll throw those links, the information in the slides, and it'll be up on the website.
Yes, but even more so, we built a presentation called 35 Ways to Use the Tools in the Classroom, and the minute we publish it, it becomes outdated because there's another 35 ways of using the tools in the classroom. And so we've created user groups. So those either that are faculty or teachers that are using Google tools, there are user groups that you can join and ask general, discussion questions like, how do I do what James just described? And you'll get responses from James if he's part of your user group on how to do things like that. All right, so that's Google Forms. And again, there's links here on introduction to Google Forms and advanced forms in Google Docs so that you can actually see some of this information through these links. All right, Google Calendar. I couldn't live without my Google Calendar. By the way, I forgot to mention, I always say this at the beginning, is that we run our little company using these tools, right? So we run Google using these tools. And so it's important for you to know, and we call it eating our own dog food. And it's not just eating our dog food because that's got a negative connotation to it. We couldn't be productive. We couldn't be as productive. We wouldn't be able to communicate, collaborate, be problem solvers if we didn't have these tools at our disposal. And what's cool about it is because not only do we use our own tools, our engineers are some of the craziest people you ever meet. We don't keep them in public. We keep them in basements. And they're unbelievably anal, and they'll look at Google Forms and they'll hear James and I describe Google Forms, and they'll sit in the back and say, Forms sucks. It's horrible, because they want to make it better, right? And so they're always making it better. They're always improving it. They're always working on making it better. So that's true for all our tools. And so what you're seeing today in terms of how our tools are utilized, you have to think a year from now what they're going to be like, or 2 years from now, and how they're going to continue to progress because we use these tools ourselves. All right, Google Calendar. I couldn't live without my Google Calendar. And some of the things that you can do that teachers use Google Calendars for, everything from setting up office hours to setting up resources. I mean, when you spend time, like many of you have in a K-12 environment, this microphone becomes a resource, and every teacher fights over who gets it next. And so if I can create a calendar for this microphone, and I can actually go in there and block off time, that's very helpful. Or you can actually use multiple calendars, one for 5 different classes that you're teaching, and you can actually see all the different classes that you're teaching. Or you can go in there and you can set up your office hours. And so instead of sitting in an office empty with no students coming, students can actually block off that time on your calendar, and you actually have real productive, meetings set up.
One of the buttons on my website was homework. You click on that homework, and it takes them to a Google Calendar. Well, that's the first step. The next thing we did was we added the ELA, the math and the science teacher, also populating the same calendar. So students had one button that gave them their homework for all 4 of their classes. Whereas before it was like, oh, this teacher's doing great. He or she put his homework on the website. Well, no, let's take it the next step further. If the student's using the Google apps like my students do, they can just add that calendar feed right into their own calendar, so it just populates right up there at the top. So we only have 4 minutes left, Jamie, and I wanted to show them the discussions thing.
Right. So sorry. Real quick, I want to go through Sites real quick, because Sites is another one of those tools where teachers are using it in different ways, and you can use it in different ways. But just imagine being able, for those of you who are not good HTML coders and aren't good web developers, that you can actually create websites for your classes using Google Sites. And so being able to go in there and create a course page, or imagine being able to start the semester with a Google site where you have your calendar in there, you have all your documents, you have all your videos, you have all your links, everything's in one place to start the school with. And I don't know if you wanted to add something about what you want to use Sites for, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as we transition over, I was actually going to show them my website that was built in Google Sites.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. And as he's transitioning over, Sites are being used in both universities and K-12 in lots of different ways. One is, of course, to set one up for your class. Another is as e-portfolios, right? So a student can actually set up a site for themselves and keep all their stuff in one place. All the books they like to read, all the links that they have, all the videos that they have. and I will transition over to James.
Yeah, so this may not look like it, but this is a Google site. It's just the basic 3-column site, and each of these are just pictures I've created, and I've put them in there because my students like apps and like phones and stuff like that, so it just looks like apps, and each of these go to different things. And like I said, homework calendar, they click on it, and it takes them to the homework. No homework for August, thankfully. But yeah, it's really great. So the last thing, to make it actually a workshop, is I want you guys to go to this address really quick. This is just a Google site, and this is our Google Doc, and it's my favorite tool, and I want you guys to be able to use this with your students or your faculty members right away. So once you've got here, you should see the exact same screen that I do. Looks like one of you's already here. And I've completely opened it up so you don't have to have a Google account to be able to use this, because I didn't know what you were logged into on your machines. So what I want you to do when you're here is click this discussions button. I don't want to click it yet so people can still see the address. And there's 3 questions there. And while other people are already, or 2 questions, 2 or 3. While people are logging in, I want you guys to go on there and answer those questions in real time. And then I'm going to show you in a second. 17 of you are here. Go ahead.
Capitalization matters, so the XGP, whatever.
Yeah.
CG.
Yep. So I used a Google URL shortener for this just so it didn't give you this massive address. So you click this discussions button. Right up here.
Yep.
All right, so check this out. I do this for test review. I put in all the different test review questions, and it's going to move fast because we have a lot of us editing it at one time. But it's really powerful to watch your teammates or all of us work and answer these questions in real time. So D. Smith is already answered. And so what I do when I'm reviewing for a test is I just post all the test review questions up there, and they go in and they have a discussion. Once we feel like we've reached a good answer, I click resolve on that discussion and I close it.
Could you show us the URL again?
Yep. So I'll do both. So the URL is right here. And so each of those are questions. I can stop that discussion at any time because I created a document, or you could too, by just clicking the resolve button. And I'll show you that once everybody gets in. And that's the power of discussions. And that was fast. You know, we only had 2 minutes left and maybe 0 minutes left, and we were able to have everybody participate in a discussion.
So if people are coming in at different times,
Mm-hmm.
they could open this up and they would see all the.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So if I go into my docs, for example, let's see, and I type in team and family time. We did it virtually one day. So we did virtual catch time, where we hold each other accountable for what we did that week. And we, oh snap.
It doesn't seem to work on it though.
Oh, the discussions feature?
Yeah.
So check this out. We had this discussion months ago, and I can go back in and check it out. So we said good morning. We went in there and I wrote apologies. And then all of my students went in and wrote the apologies that they had for that week. So I'd like to apologize to Brianne because I was being rude to her yesterday. And all the different apologies that we had for that week. It's CAT, so call outs, apologies, and then we go into thank yous. Let's see if we can sign. It was just awesome. All through Google Docs.
All right, so we're getting kicked out, and there's other tools in there, other ways of using these. You'll have access to these presentations that you can go through. But again, I mean, we're going to spend 2.5 days talking about technology and education and why we need to bring technology into education in K-12. But I want to make sure that these tools are useful to you in what you're doing, and they're very useful to me as a professor when I'm teaching my classes. And so I want to make sure that if you have questions or if you want ideas on how to use these tools and are not in these presentations, let me know and I will give you some ideas. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.